right, do you have a creative person in your life that you never quite know how to buy for? Maybe they're a graphic designer or a photographer or an artist or student or some sort of a creative person doing some sort of creative work, and you want to get them something that's actually useful to them or meaningful or just beautiful and not just like random clutter or a novelty mug. Or maybe you're like me, who freezes at the sheer thought of someone asking me for a list of the things that I want. I don't know about you, but I find the thought of having to come up with things that I want somehow deeply stressful. Maybe you're just looking for inspiration. So I spent some time noodling on this, and I think I've come up with what I would call a deeply exhaustive list of things that any artist or student or maker or creative person would genuinely like to have. Things that are either really useful to making things or are just beautiful upgrades that you might not think of asking for yourself, but would be thrilled to have. I'm really excited about this list, so let's dive in. If we're just meeting, I'm Janelle. I've been a freelance graphic designer for about 15 years now, and this is my little space to talk about design and freelance life and just what it means to be a creative person who is also trying to make a living doing the things that they love to do. So, if that sounds like your bag, hit the subscribe button because I'd love to hang out again. When I sat down to make this list, my goal was to make it as discipline agnostic, gender neutral, and price range friendly as possible. My hope is that whatever specific field or interest your creative is in, or wherever they are in their lives, there will be something here that sparks an idea to kind of get you going. All right, let's start off with the category that I think is the easiest win right off the bat, and that is definitely books. I have never met a creative person who didn't wish that they could expand their inspiration library somehow, but books are always one of those things that feel a little expensive and a little unnecessary to buy for yourself, but are always deeply welcome, at least for me. So, books for creatives tend to fall generally into three categories. The first would be instructional books that dive into a specific skill set or creative medium or ideology or whatever. If your creative happens to be a beginning graphic designer, I actually just did a whole video on the 5 books that I recommend to every person who's just starting out in graphic design. So start there if you want a good place to go. Whatever their specific interest, finding a couple of books that are diving into the thing that they want to learn more about or their field that they really love is a really good place to start. All right, the second category I would call creative self-development. These would be books on mindset, the idea of being creative, and the things that get in the way from making the things you love and making a life out of it. Some of my favorites in this category are definitely the Austin Kleon Creative Life Trilogy, I guess you could call it, these 3. Steven Pressfield's The War of Art, a book that I go back to and read every year just to kick my butt again. And I also love a book called Make Your Art No Matter What by Beth Pickens. She really dives into the mindsets and the holdups that keep someone from having a creative life, and I found it to be really helpful and very practical. So any of those are a good starting point if you want to give someone books about creativity and the creative process. The third category is endless, and that's just beautiful books about art and design and artists and designers and the sort of endless pool of reference books. Lest I be here for 10 hours listing all of my favorite design books, think about the artistic movements, the time periods, the artists, the makers that your creative really loves, and then get them books about those things. There are beautiful coffee table books and visual reference books for every kind of creative inspiration that would make a really great present for anyone who just is interested in things. This is an endless stream of inspiration for any creative person, and it's the kind of stuff that feels a little bit expensive and a little bit unnecessary for yourself, but is always welcome. So when in doubt, buy him a book. My next category is subscriptions. Now, I know that this gets a little into like generic gift card category, but there are some really expensive parts of being a creative person, especially if you're trying to do it professionally. And one of them is just the endless toll of all of these digital subscriptions that you have to have in order to live and work on a computer. This is stuff that we all need, and it just gets to be a lot, especially if you're creative as a student or they're just starting out in their career. So giving someone a subscription for a few months, 6 months, a year, to a thing that they would have to buy anyway is actually really kind, and it means that you're seeing them. You're saying, hey, I recognize that this is the thing that you want to do, and I can help lighten the load a little bit. I'm supporting you, I'm supporting the thing you want to make, and I'm doing it in a really physical, tangible way, even though this is like a digital, vague kind of a thing. Especially if your creative person doesn't do this full time, sometimes it can be hard to justify expensive subscriptions to keep making stuff. And it's saying to them, hey, I recognize that this hobby or pursuit of yours is good and an exciting thing that you're doing, and I want to support you as you continue to play and see what you love to make. That's awesome, and way more meaningful than just, here's a little card of a thing. The obvious starting point for any digitally based designer or artist is the Adobe Suite Creative Cloud. This is just an expensive fact of life right now for most creative people, regardless of what their specific skill set or interest is. And a few months of an Adobe CC subscription is awesome. In the same vein, any person working on the internet and their computer probably needs cloud storage, and I guess that is not really a sexy gift, but a Dropbox premium subscription is awesome. The same thing with a Canva Pro account. That would be great. If they're doing any sort of design or digital artwork, they're probably going to need to build up a library of fonts and brushes and design elements and all of that kind of stuff. There are 2 websites that offer subscription services for endless downloads of all kinds of digital assets that are the kinds of things that any creative needs to build up. They are Envato Elements and Creative Marketplace, and both of those would make a really nice present. Or you can give them a subscription to a learning platform so they can keep learning their skills. Skillshare is the obvious starting point here. This is an online repository of classes made by designers and artists and makers and business people covering all kinds of different things. So if they just want to get their feet wet and learn a bunch of stuff, that's a really nice present. Even for a 6-month subscription, that's really cool. Or maybe they just want to learn from people that they really love. Masterclass is a great option. Or if they're a fine artist and they really want to dive into their technical skill set, get them a subscription to the New Masters Art Academy, and they will do a deep dive in any kind of technical proficiency that they want to learn in a fine art medium. The short of it is, digital subscriptions can actually be a really thoughtful, meaningful gift and are way beyond just here's a gift card to something. Okay, following in the line of unsexy but really useful presents for any creative person, we have the category of tools. This category spans the gamut between really expensive but necessary things that every creative needs and usually needs more of, all the way to small, really affordable little things that are maybe accessories or little tool sets that are actually really helpful but you might not think to get for yourself. First, there are tech accessories, especially if you're creative as any kind of content creator or digital artist or designer who lives on their computer. External hard drives. We never have enough of them. An external power bank for when you're out at a cafe working. You never have enough of them. Airtags that you can put in your different bags and on all of your different devices so you don't leave them in an airport in Kuala Lumpur, for example. I love this portable light block that I keep in my bag, so if I'm filming and I need an extra little bit of light, I have that available to me. Any person who uses a camera always needs extra SD cards and a nice SD card case. A pouch just to keep all of their tech and cords in is something that can always be upgraded, and people probably don't have a nice version of. One of my favorites is this little Anchor universal outlet that I take with me every time I travel, but it's so compact and easy to use, and it has so many good ports for different types of USB outlets that I keep it in my bag, and even if I'm not actually leaving the country, I end up using it to charge all of my stuff because it's just nice. These are all little tech upgrades that you always need more of, even if they already have one, and it's just really nice to get. Recently, I was influenced on Instagram to get this little portable tripod by MOFT that just MagSafes onto my phone, and I really love it. It's one of those little things that I hemmed and hawed about for like 6 months to buy, and when I finally got it for myself, it's like, this was not that expensive. Why did it take me that long? And I feel like those are the best kinds of presents for any creative person. Maybe your creative just saved up and got themselves a fancy iPad Pro. Awesome! big expense. But what about accessories for it? What about a really nice case? Or a pencil grip for your Apple Pencil so that it's more comfortable to do digital drawing? Or replacement pen nibs, because we always wear them out if you're using Procreate or any digital drawing software. The best thing I ever bought for my iPad was a paper-like screen protector that turns the surface from like a shiny glass into a really beautiful paper-like texture that makes it much better to draw. If you're creative as any sort of digital artist, you could spruce up their drawing experience in a way that they might not think to get for themselves. My next category are leveled up art supplies. Even if your creative isn't primarily a fine artist, giving someone upgraded art supplies is almost always welcome. Maybe especially if they aren't primarily a fine artist. Giving someone a really nice set of new supplies to play with, maybe in a new medium or something completely unrelated to what they do for work, is a way of saying, hey, I see you. I see what gives you joy. I see the creative process that can be completely unrelated to having to make it do something for you, and I just want you to be able to play and have some fun. What a cool present. If you are anything like me, you have carried the same student-grade art supplies from apartment to apartment and rarely justify letting yourself buy new things unless it is specifically for work. Any things that can inspire creativity or play are great gifts for any creative. A new pack of gouache or watercolors or pastels, a brand new sketchbook or a beautiful dotted notebook. These are great gifts. Additionally, you could upgrade their supplies or the things that they use to make art that may be a little bit nicer than what they would give themselves. If your person does any kind of painting, a really nice set of ceramic paint accessories is so beautiful. Or maybe a little handmade pencil case to keep all of their stuff in. Or a Japanese toolbox like this one that I've been obsessed with. They will find a way to fill it. Round out a gift with a fresh pack of field notes. That's awesome. These are all welcome upgrades to any supply closet and are unexpected but always appreciated. Finally, along this line, if you're looking for a big-ticket, blow-their-socks-off option that is in the unnecessary but creatively inspiring category, what about a Cricut Machine? This is one of those totally unnecessary but creatively awesome things that is really useful for a whole swath of makers and creatives and crafters and artists and any person who likes to physically make things. Having a Cricut Machine totally ratchets up what you're able to do. If they're a hobbyist of any kind or a crafter of any kind, going into metal or leather or just all kinds of stuff. It's not necessary, but it's so much fun to think about the creative potential of. If you want to really give them something that they've probably thought about buying themselves like multiple times but haven't been able to justify, that is a great present. Okay, my next category are workplace quality of life upgrades. If your creative has a home office or a studio or a workspace of any kind, a little desk in the corner that they do all their stuff in, whatever, what about helping them to upgrade their workspace in ways that they might not think of doing for themselves? The great thing about this is there is a huge price spectrum here, and any little upgrade is something that you wouldn't buy, but you'd be grateful to have, even if it's really cheap. It might not be the most obvious category, but upgrading basic office supplies that any person needs to have in order to work at whatever they're doing into things that are really beautifully designed and well made is so nice. You might not have thought about having a beautiful tape dispenser or stapler or post-it note holder that lives on your desk and just looks beautiful, or a really well-engineered set of scissors or a ruler. These are all things that everyone needs to have, but there are beautiful versions of that range from not that expensive to expensive heritage, beautifully made things that are difficult to justify for yourself, but would make an incredible present. My favorite easy upgrade in this category are just really nice pens and pencils. I don't mean art supplies, I mean the pens and pencils that you need to have on your desk as you're working. About a year ago, I finally grabbed the little pen holder that sat on my desk with all the crappy little pens from like banks and conferences, got rid of all of them, and bought a really beautiful, not expensive set of pens on Amazon, and my favorite Blackwing pencils that I use all of the time. They're beautiful and they feel so good and they're so good to use. They're not really that expensive, but having that little upgrade made me feel so much more professional, and it genuinely brings me joy every time I'm in my studio. Going down this road, think about things that would just make their studio life better. What about a pretty looking diffuser that sits on their desk, or a studio candle? A really nice memo pad that is a joy to write on, or a really pretty desk organizer that keeps the things that they have out actually feeling tidy. These are all little upgrades, but they make a big difference. If they are a coffee lover and they spend a lot of time in their studio, what about a little mug warmer that sits on their desk and keeps their coffee warm? That is great. Or take that one step farther and get them a beautiful Chemex pour over with a little electric kettle. Then they could actually have a little coffee station in their workspace. Finally, in this category, there are two companies that I really love who make beautiful, heritage, gorgeously made office accessories that blow the socks out of anything I've ever seen. They're just beautifully made. One is called Grove Made and one is called Ugmonk. I love everything that they make. And yes, they are expensive, but these are things that they will have forever. If your person has a really nice pair of headphones that they love that they take to the office every day, what about a really beautiful headphone stand that has pride of place in their office and is a spot where they can put their headphones every day? This is the kind of stuff that, again, you wouldn't justify buying yourself, but is so beautiful. About 2 years ago, I finally broke down and bought the analog note system that Ugmonk makes. It's this beautiful system. Oh, I have it right here. I'm using it right now. But it's this beautiful system for doing your daily to-dos that is just tactile and gorgeous. It's walnut. They have these packs that get remade, and every day you have a little spot. You make your note for the day, and I do all of my note-taking and to-do listing on Notion in my whole digital space. But every day when I come to the studio, being able to set up my little note, sit down and write, okay, this is the next focus I'm going to have, gives me this really tactile, analog experience that has really elevated my studio space. I love doing it. It's part of my ritual. And yeah, it was expensive, but I'm going to have it for years. And this is the kind of thing that is really thoughtful to give someone. All right, almost done. My last category is just vibes. Most creatives just love beautifully made objects. So I'm also listing just a couple of companies that make really lovely things. House stuff and art stuff and just things that any person would enjoy having. This is also where Etsy comes in. Getting a really beautifully handmade version of a thing is just really nice. Get them a really nice handmade mug and a coffee subscription. The one I've been using for years is called Atlas Coffee Club, and it's all about traveling to different countries every month, and they have specially designed, really beautifully packaged coffee from individual farms, and every month I feel like I'm going on a little trip. I learn about the country and how the coffee is made there. I learn about the farm. It's a really nice present. It's not expensive, and that's the kind of thing that just makes a really nice gift. What about a pretty puzzle? I love these gradient puzzles, and any graphic designer would get very nerdily into this. My point is, it doesn't need to be work-related to be exciting to a creative person. It just needs to be really beautifully made. So I hope the companies that I'm listing below will get you going in the right direction. So that is my list. I hope that was helpful to you. I hope something sparked some inspiration, either for your own list or for the creative in your life. If there's something that I missed that you think would also be good on another list like this, let me know and I'd love to add it to next year's list. I really hope this was helpful. I loved making it, and I'll see you next time.